Why are we drawn to certain people? You know, why does that spark happen with one person and, well, not another?
It feels like this huge mystery.
Yeah, a beautiful one.
Yeah.
And if you've ever tried to figure it out, you probably hit this wall of conflicting advice, right? Self-help gurus, pop culture, dating apps even, all claiming they've got the secret.
It's so confusing. It really feels like there should be some easy answer, like a simple strategy. But our source material today, it really digs into the research. And it shows why attraction is just way more complex and, honestly, less controllable than we often hope.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're working with a stack of sources, really exploring the science behind how relationships form. We're mainly drawing on psychologist Viren Swami's compilation in his book, Attraction Explained.
Right.
Our mission here is to cut through all that noise, look at what the actual evidence says, maybe debunk some myths.
Some really persistent ones.
Yeah, totally. And reveal the surprising factors that, truly influence who we fall for and why. We want to help you understand this complex process based on solid research, not just wishful thinking.
Okay, so let's start right there with those myths, because the source is pretty clear on this.
Yeah.
There are no foolproof methods, no guaranteed strategies for making someone date you.
Right. That whole idea of, like, laws of attraction in romance. Like, if you just say this magic phrase or do that one thing.
Yeah, like you can engineer it.
Exactly. The source just argues human psychology, connection, it's all way too intricate for simple rules like that.
And this critique goes pretty strongly for a lot of popular self-help relationship books, too.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the source discusses some analysis drawing on sociologists like Arlie Hochschild and Rebecca Hazelden.
Okay.
And they suggest these books, even though they promise empowerment, can actually end up undermining emotionally rich bonds.
How? That seems completely backwards.
I know, right? But it's by pushing concepts like radical self-sufficiency, emotional distance, even a bit of distrust towards partners.
Huh.
Hochschild had this image of the postmodern cowgirl.
Okay.
Someone so wary of depending on anyone, so wary of vulnerability that they become kind of detached, prioritizing independence over that mutual reliance, that intimacy that actually, feeds a deep relationship.
Wow. So the advice, trying to help, might actually push people towards isolation.
That's the argument, yeah. It's a really insightful critique.
And the source is just as critical of pickup artistry, I gather.
Oh, absolutely. It sees it as basically misusing scientific-sounding language, hardwired attraction switches, algorithms of seduction.
Wait, I've heard that kind of language.
It uses that jargon to sell an ideology that's really rooted in objectifying and manipulating women. The source doesn't mince words, calls it morally, ethically, and importantly, scientifically bankrupt.
So it borrows the language, but not the substance or the ethics.
Precisely. It's a framework that lacks genuine scientific understanding.
Okay, so if we toss out the myths, the pseudoscience,
Yeah.
where does the actual research start? What are the real foundations of attraction?
It starts with something incredibly basic, almost boringly obvious, maybe?
Yeah.
But the research shows it's profoundly powerful. Proximity and mere exposure.
Proximity, just being near someone.
Pretty much. Propinquity is the academic term, just being physically close.
Like you're just more likely to connect with people you literally bump into more often.
Exactly that. There was this early analysis by James Bassard, looked at thousands of marriage licenses in Philadelphia, found a clear pattern. Couples tended to live really, really close to each other before they got married. Astonishingly close.
Wow.
And then came the classic Westgate studies. Festinger and his colleagues.
The housing complex studies. I
Yeah.
remember hearing about those. The architecture of friendship.
That's them. They really
Yeah.
quantified this, showed how the physical layout, like where the staircases were or the mailboxes.
Yeah, things like that.
Yeah. They heavily influenced who became friends simply because it determined who people saw most often day to day.
That's wild.
And it holds up. More recently, Mitch Abak did a study, randomly assigned seats in a classroom. A year later, people reported liking the students they just happened to sit closest to more.
Just from sitting near them. No extra interaction needed.
It wasn't intentional selection, just proximity doing its work.
It's kind of nuts to think a CG chart or your mailbox location could shape your social world, maybe even who you date.
It really makes you think about those subtle environmental factors.
The source also talks about where we meet people.
Yeah.
Different kinds of places.
Yeah, it breaks it down broadly. You've got public places, them closed, or select places like work, university, where interaction's a bit more structured.
Right.
And Private settings like meeting through friends or family, and of course the huge one now,
The internet.
the internet, yeah. A massive transformative shift in where people meet.
Online dating changed everything.
Totally. And the source points out it's especially important for, say, same-sex couples. They might face what's called a thin dating market in their local area.
Fewer potential partners nearby.
Exactly. So the internet becomes this crucial tool for connecting with a much wider pool.
Okay, so proximity gives you the chance to interact. But you said there's a deeper reason it matters beyond just running into people.
Yes, there's this underlying factor that's often missed. It's called spatial homogamy, or sometimes differential association.
Okay, what's that?
It just means that people who are similar in important social ways, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, education, cultural background, they tend to cluster geographically. They live near each other.
Right, like different neighborhoods often have different demographic makeups.
Exactly. So your physical location isn't random, socially speaking. It already filters a pool of people you're likely to meet.
So you're bumping into people who are already somewhat like you.
In many cases, yes. That New Haven study example showed very few marriages happened between people from neighborhoods that were really different socially. Proximity provides access, but often access to a pool of already somewhat similar people. It's a structural thing.
That makes sense. And that ties into the other big factor you mentioned. Mere exposure.
Ah, yes. Robert Zajonk's famous principle. One of the most solid findings in psychology, really.
The more you see something, the more you like it.
Basically, yes. The more frequently we're exposed to a stimulus, could be music, a picture, a face, whatever, the more we tend to develop positive feelings towards it.
Or them.
Like that name letter effect. You like the letters in your own name just because you see them constantly.
Perfect example. So simple, but it shows the principle.
Oh.
Or the author's own quirky classroom experiment.
Oh, yeah.
Had a Confederate just sit inside a large bag at the front of the class for several weeks. Didn't interact, just sat there.
In a bag. Seriously.
Yep. And students reported liking for the person in the bag actually increased over the semester just from seeing them there repeatedly. Okay, that's weirdly effective.
And Moreland and Beach did more controlled studies. Confederates attended classes different numbers of times, same result.
Yeah.
The more sessions they attended, the more the actual students liked them at the end of the term.
So just seeing someone around, even passively, makes them seem more likable.
It seems so, and it even changes how we perceive them. Familiar faces get rated as happier.
Happier.
Yeah, and looking at familiar faces actually triggers more activity in our own smiling muscles. Familiarity literally makes them look and feel more positive to us.
That's fascinating. It's not just getting used to them. It's like your brain actually gives them a positive spin.
It does seem that way. The source also touches briefly on how this might connect to early experiences, the familiarity of caregivers' faces potentially shaping later preferences. Though it gets complicated, especially around sexual attraction. Like self-resembling faces might be liked in non-sexual contexts because they feel familiar and safe, but maybe less liked in a sexual context, potentially as an evolved mechanism to avoid inbreeding. It's complex.
Okay, interesting nuance there. So proximity and mere exposure set the stage. Put us near people, maybe similar people, maybe just people we get used to seeing. But let's get to the big one, appearance.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Physical attractiveness. The source definitely confirms, yes, it's a pervasive factor, especially in those initial stages.
Like in speed dating.
Exactly. Speed dating studies consistently show that how physically attractive someone is rated heavily influences whether people want to see them again. Initially, it matters.
Okay, so looks matter at first. But what about that old stereotype? That men care way more about looks than women do. Does the research back that up?
This is a really crucial point the source makes. It argues that those supposed sex differences in valuing physical attractiveness, they're greatly exaggerated.
Real.
Especially when you look at actual face-to-face interactions. When people are meeting, interacting live, physical attractiveness matters pretty much equally to men and women.
Equally. Wow, that flies in the face of the whole men are from Mars, women are from Venus thing. So where does that myth come from?
The source suggests it often comes from studies asking about hypothetical partners, like what would you want in your ideal mate? Or from analyzing personal ads, where people state preferences in a vacuum.
So what people say they want versus what actually drives their choices when they meet someone.
Exactly. In the heat of the moment, the importance of physical appeal seems to converge for both sexes.
That's a huge takeaway. Context really matters. What about casual sex, though? Are there differences there?
Yes. Those classic studies by Clark and Hatfield are well-known men much more likely to accept a casual sex offer from a stranger.
Right.
But the source stresses digging into the reasons, drawing on researchers like Terry Conley, moving beyond just simple biological determinism.
Okay, so what reasons does this source highlight?
Well, for women, a big one is the fear of negative judgment, right?
Yeah.
The sexual double standard. Women often get stigmatized for casual sex in ways men don't. Safety concerns are also massive, obviously. And women might anticipate less physical pleasure. Studies do show men tend to orgasm more reliably in casual encounters.
Right.
And for men, socialization can play a role, maybe status linked to conquests or using sex to reaffirm heterosexuality. But Conley's work is interesting because it shows these differences can shrink or vanish if the person making the offer is familiar and attractive.
So it's not purely biological, it's heavily influenced by social context, risk, and potential reward.
Exactly, a much richer picture.
Okay, beyond that initial assessment, there's the what is beautiful is good bias. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a fundamental thing in social perception. Attractive people just get perceived more positively across a whole range of traits that have nothing to do with looks.
Like what?
They're seen as more honest, more intelligent, happier, more successful, even better parents, more competent leaders. Dion's early study really highlighted this halo effect.
So we just project all these good qualities onto them without any evidence.
Pretty much, yeah. And this bias isn't just some weird quirk. It helps explain why we're drawn to them initially, why we desire relationships with attractive people.
And it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Tragically, yes. Attractive people might internalize those positive expectations and actually behave in ways that seem to confirm them, partly because they're treated differently.
But, okay, even if beautiful is good, in the real world, people don't always end up with the most attractive person possible, right? We tend to pair up with people similarly attractive, the matching phenomena.
Yes, exactly. While we might daydream about dating a movie star, realistically, people tend to seek partners who are roughly at their own level of physical attractiveness.
Why is that?
The source suggests a pretty pragmatic reason. It's largely about avoiding the potential pain of rejection. You sort of calibrate your desires to what feels achievable.
Makes sense. Okay, so initial appearance, this positive bias, it gets your foot in the door. But here's a really crucial point the source makes. Appearance judgments aren't fixed. They can change.
Absolutely. This is one of the most powerful and, I think, hopeful insights in the whole thing. Initial judgments about looks can be completely overwritten by personality and interaction over time.
How does that work? Those Niffen and Wilson studies.
Yeah, they're fantastic examples. One followed archaeology students working really closely together on a dig.
Okay.
Another followed police academy cadets during training. At the start, everyone rated each other's physical attractiveness. Standard stuff.
Right.
But then, as they spent weeks working together, getting to know each other, non-physical traits started to matter. Like someone being really hardworking or helpful, kind, funny, just generally well-liked by the group.
And that changed things.
Dramatically. By the end of the study period, people's perceptions of physical attractiveness had shifted significantly. Someone initially rated as average or even below average could end up being genuinely seen as much more physically attractive by their peers.
Wow. So it's not just liking their personality despite their looks. It actually changes how you see their looks.
That's exactly it. It's counterintuitive to how we usually think about attractiveness as this fixed, objective thing.
Totally.
The big takeaway is becoming a valuable social partner, being kind, competent, supportive, fun to be around, can literally enhance how attractive you appear to others over time. Behavior changes perception.
That's huge. It's not just genetics. It's who you are as a person in interaction. What other traits does the source highlight beyond just that initial rating?
A good sense of humor comes up consistently, rated highly by both men and women.
Always popular. Why is it so attractive?
The source suggests it signals warmth, maybe intelligence, cheerfulness, and research by Norman Lai even showed humor could boost attraction ratings for people initially seen as less physically attractive. It can compensate, you know?
Makes sense. And what about niceness, that whole nice guys finish last idea?
Yeah, the source tackles that head on.
Right.
And basically says the research debunks it. Yep. That study with Nice Todd, Middle Todd, and Jerk Todd profiles, Nice Todd was consistently preferred by women, rated kinder, smarter, and just as exciting as the others.
Huh. Take that stereotype.
Right. And other studies show altruism and kindness are attractive qualities. Niceness isn't a drawback. It's actually a real asset for connection.
Okay, so we've got proximity, exposure, how appearance works and changes, humor, niceness. But attraction isn't just about the other person, is it? Our own state, the situation, that matters too.
Oh, hugely. This is where we get into fascinating psychological territory, like misattribution of arousal.
Right, the idea that you feel physically keyed up, but you mistake why you feel that way.
Exactly. Your heart's racing, palms are sweaty, maybe from fear or excitement from something else entirely. But your brain mistakenly links that arousal to the person you happen to be with at that moment, making you feel more attracted to them.
The classic example everyone mentions is that wobbly bridge study, Capilano Suspension Bridge.
Perfect example. Dutton and Aaron. Men crossed this high, scary, swaying bridge. Obviously, they felt aroused from fear.
Yeah.
Then an attractive female experimenter approached them. Compared to men who crossed a low, stable bridge, the guys from the scary bridge were way more likely to call her later.
They mistook their fear for attraction.
It seems they misattributed that physiological arousal. And other studies show similar things with exercise, scary movies, roller coasters.
So the advice is take your date bungee jumping.
Maybe, but with a big caveat.
Okay.
Arousal alone isn't a magic attraction switch. The other person still needs to be, basically suitable or likable in the first place.
Right.
If you're on that roller coaster next to someone you already actively dislike, the arousal might actually make you dislike them more. It seems to amplify whatever feeling is already there.
Good point. Don't try it with someone you're already clashing with. What about the closing time effect? Do people really look better as the bar is about to close?
Folk wisdom definitely says so. And studies going back decades have found that, people in bars tend to rate others as more attractive as closing time gets nearer.
Is it just desperation? Time running out?
Could be partly reactants reacting against the limitation of choice. But the source mentions a study in a Sydney pub that looked closely at this. Their findings pointed more towards increasing alcohol consumption through the night.
The beer goggles effect.
Seems like it. That effect was even seen in people already in relationships, which wouldn't really fit the limited choice idea. So, alcohol probably affects perceptual judgment. Beauty is in the eye of the beer holder, maybe.
Okay. The source also mentions a much darker tactic related to this. Go ugly early.
Yes, and it's presented very critically as indicative of misogyny and objectification.
Oh, so?
The source discusses research where this isn't just seen as some dating strategy, but reflects a mindset that views women as sexual objects whose value decreases over an evening. It's about securing sex with anyone rather than seeking genuine connection or showing respect.
That's grim. It highlights a really demeaning perspective.
Exactly. Rooted in problematic views of gender.
Okay, shifting to something more positive. Love is blind. Is that actually a thing?
It appears to be, It's described as a kind of positive illusion.
Like a cognitive bias.
Right. We genuinely tend to perceive our romantic partners as more attractive than impartial observers might rate them. The source even uses the Shrek and Fiona example.
Two ogres finding beauty in each other.
Exactly, where others see, ogres.
That's actually quite lovely. Why would our minds do that? Is there a benefit?
The thinking is it might be quite functional, especially early on in a relationship.
How?
It helps focus your attention and desire on your chosen partner, makes you less likely to dwell on alternatives or minor flaws. It kind of helps cement your choice, builds commitment, especially when there might still be some uncertainty floating around.
So it helps you feel good about your choice and stick with it.
Plausibly, yeah.
Okay, so we've met someone, influenced by who's around, who's familiar, how we see them, and how that changes. Our own feelings, the situation. How do we actually build that connection, move beyond the initial spark?
Similarity becomes really important here. The general rule, strongly supported by research, similarity breeds attraction.
We like people who are like us, shared interests, values, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Byrne did these classic studies using the phantom other technique.
Right, rating fictional people.
Yeah. Participants got profiles with varying degrees of attitudes similarity to their own. And liking increased in a straight line. The more attitudes they shared with the phantom person, the more they liked them.
Clear link. This is related to homophily.
Yes, homophily just means liking those similar to us. The source breaks it down into two types. Value homophily.
Shared attitudes, beliefs.
Right. Political views, religious beliefs, general outlook. And status homophily.
Which is more about demographics.
Exactly. Similarity in things like ethnicity, age, education level, occupation, social standing, basically.
So it's not just liking the same bands, but also maybe coming from a similar background.
Precisely. And status homophily can be really powerful, sometimes unconsciously. That Detroit study showed a strong tendency for friendships to form within the same ethnic group.
Interesting. Does that hold up online too?
Status homophily is still important online, but some studies suggest maybe age and education similarity become even stronger predictors there, potentially more than ethnicity in some online contexts.
Okay, so similarity attracts. What about the opposite cliche? Opposites attract. Any truth to that?
The source addresses this directly, and the conclusion is there's very little evidence for it.
Really? Not at all.
The idea of complementarity, being attracted to someone whose traits complement yours, like dominant submissive, just doesn't get much support in the research overall. The pictures may be a bit messier than just similarity, but the overwhelming trend is similarity driving attraction and relationship success.
So ditch the idea of finding your opposite.
The evidence points towards shared ground being more important.
And this similarity principle is what dating site algorithms try to leverage.
Often, yes. They rely heavily on users filling out questionnaires about interests, values, preferences, trying to match based on stated similarity.
Do they work?
Well, the source notes there's still some debate about how much more effective those algorithms are compared to just letting people browse profiles and find connections themselves. It's not definitively settled.
Okay, so similarity is key, but there's a nuance. Sometimes anticipating meeting someone changes things.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sometimes if you know you will be interacting face-to-face soon, the initial impact of attitude similarity on liking might be weaker. You might even prefer a bit of dissimilarity initially.
Why would that be?
The source speculates it might be because you're holding off judgment, waiting to get that richer real-life information from interaction, rather than relying solely on the limited info from a profile.
Okay, that makes sense. Beyond similarity, what's another absolute cornerstone of building connection?
Reciprocity. It's incredibly simple but incredibly powerful.
We like people who like us.
Bingo. It sounds obvious, but the research confirms it's a major driver.
How do they study that?
Curtis and Miller did a great study. They led participants to believe another person either liked or disliked them.
Okay.
And when people thought the other person liked them, they acted warmer, more positively, more agreeably towards that person.
Which probably made the other person
Like come back more. Exactly. It creates this positive feedback loop, a self-fulfilling prophecy of mutual liking.
But there's a catch. If you suspect ulterior motives.
Yes. If that liking feels manipulative or like it comes with strings attached, maybe they only like you because you can do something for them.
Right.
That can totally undermine the positive feeling. It triggers what psychologists call reactance.
Reactance.
Yeah, that feeling when you sense your freedom to choose or judge is being pushed or manipulated, so you instinctively push back. Like in Brem's old soda study, tell people they can't have a certain soda, and suddenly they want it more.
So if someone's liking feels like pressure,
you might react against it and actually like them less. Authenticity matters.
Okay, so we're trying to connect. A huge part of that early stage is just figuring out, does this person like me back? Signaling must be crucial. And dealing with all that uncertainty.
Absolutely. Uncertainty is kind of the defining feature early on. And traditionally, yeah, heavily shaped by those gendered dating scripts.
That approach, women signal.
Often the pattern, historically. And research looked into how women signal interest. Monica Moore's work is key here.
What did she find? How do women signal?
She cataloged all these specific warm behaviors. Things like smiling, laughing, nodding, glancing, expressive gestures. Even small things like lip licking or adjusting clothes.
Okay.
But the really crucial finding was this. The frequency of those signals was a stronger predictor of whether men would approach than the woman's rated physical attractiveness.
Wow. So it's less about baseline attractiveness and more about actively showing you're open to being approached.
Exactly. Signaling interest and approachability matters immensely. And mutual gaze, catching someone's eye, is also highlighted as a key precursor to conversation.
That's another really powerful insight. Okay, so someone signals, or you decide to approach. What's next? The chat-up line.
Yes, the often feared chat-up line.
Do they matter?
The source views them as more than just cheesy openers. They're a kind of courtship display, right?
Yeah.
A way to test the waters, gauge reciprocity. Is this person willing to engage?
Then to start sharing information.
Exactly, to facilitate that exchange that moves things from just looking to actually connecting.
Is there a science to a good chat-up line then?
Richard Wiseman did a speed dating study on this, and yes, there seems to be.
What worked?
Avoid lines that just shut down conversation,
Huh.
closed questions, weird non sequiturs. The example given is the awful, my best friend's a helicopter pilot. Like, where do you go from there?
Nowhere good.
Right. What works better are open-ended questions, things that invite a more creative, personal response, that reveal a bit of personality. What's your favorite pizza topping? Or, if you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be? Something that sparks a story, not just a yes-no.
Makes sense. Better than a canned joke. The source also points out a specific problem with online interactions here.
Yeah, the lack of face-to-face cues, that anonymity, it can unfortunately embolden some pretty bad behavior.
Like what?
The source gives examples of the misogyny that's sadly common online. Unsolicited demands, harassment, sending inappropriate photos, drawing on things like the straight white boys texting example.
Ugh. The lack of immediate social feedback seems to lower the bar for some people.
That seems to contribute, yeah. A definite downside of purely text-based initial interactions.
And speaking of downsides, that uncertainty we mentioned, it's really common and difficult early on.
Definitely. Not knowing where you stand, friends. Dating. Going somewhere. It's uncomfortable. Research links it to decreased liking, more turmoil, makes communication harder.
So we try to reduce it.
Yep. We use strategies. Communication researchers identify 3 main types. Passive, just observing the person, maybe how they act with others.
Okay.
Active, asking mutual friends about them, maybe even subtly setting up situations to see how they react.
Bit sneaky.
Can be. And interactive, just talking to them directly. And William Douglas identified specific affinity testing tactics people use within these. Baxter and Wilmot talked about secret tests.
Secret tests, like what?
Indirect ways to gauge the relationship status, especially before you've had the talk. Things like hinting at the future, seeing how they respond. They tend to fade as relationships get more defined.
Gotcha. But is uncertainty always bad? Does it ever help?
Well, the source does note the counterargument that too much certainty could be boring, right? A little uncertainty might actually spark more interest, keep things exciting, make you think more deeply about the person.
Thrill of the chase? Kind of.
Maybe a bit of that. And sometimes people might even prefer to keep things uncertain, perhaps to avoid hearing bad news about where things stand. So it's complex.
Okay. So once we navigate some uncertainty, sharing personal stuff, self-disclosure becomes key.
Absolutely fundamental. Altman and Taylor's social penetration theory is the classic model here.
The onion analogy. Peeling back layers.
Exactly. Relationships develop as we gradually increase the breadth, talking about more topics, and the depth, sharing more personal, intimate details of what we disclose.
And it has to go both ways, right?
That's crucial. Reciprocal self-disclosure. You share something personal, I share something personal back at a similar level. That builds trust, intimacy, liking.
Just the back and forth helps.
Studies show conversational reciprocity helps, generally. But specifically, turn-taking in disclosure, matching the other person's level of openness. Maybe answering the same question they just asked you, that seems especially powerful for building closeness. Sprecher's Skype study showed this really clearly.
Like those 36 questions to fall in love.
Precisely. That exercise works entirely on the principle of structured, escalating, reciprocal self-disclosure.
Okay, so proximity, appearance, and how it changes. Signals, similarity, reciprocity, disclosure. That's a lot of science. But real life isn't a lab, right? The source reminds us it's messier.
Totally. Chance plays a huge role. Serendipity, unexpected encounters that you just can't plan or replicate in a study.
Like meeting someone because your flight got canceled.
Exactly. Stuff like that happens all the time.
And what about the pratfall effect? That sounds fun.
It's a great one. Elliot Aronson's finding. Basically, someone who seems really competent, almost perfect, can actually become more likable if they make a small mistake. A little blunder, a pratfall.
Like spilling coffee on themselves?
Maybe. It makes them seem human, relatable, not intimidatingly perfect.
So being clumsy can be good.
But there's a catch. It works best if the person is already seen as highly competent. If someone's already perceived as kind of mediocre, making a mistake just confirms their mediocrity. Nobody likes an incompetent blunderer. And who's doing the rating matters too?
Nuance. Always nuance. And this all reminds us that lab studies have limits.
Absolutely. The source is careful to point that out. Many studies use specific populations, like students, in artificial settings. Replication is key.
Right.
The mention of that blonde versus brunette study showing different results depending on how it was replicated, that really highlights why we need to be cautious about overgeneralizing from single studies.
Good reminder. And finally, our own baggage. Our past relationships matter.
Profoundly. They shape how we approach new connections. Early attachment experiences, past romantic relationships. They create these working models.
Like unconscious templates.
Yeah, expectations about how relationships work, whether others are trustworthy, whether we're worthy of love. If you're still emotionally stuck on an ex, for instance, that can definitely hinder forming new healthy bonds.
And this idea of transference.
Yes, Susan Anderson's work. It shows how our impressions of new people can be shaped by whether they remind us, even subtly, of important people from our past.
How so?
If a new person resembles a supportive friend, you might unconsciously transfer positive feelings onto them. If they remind you of a critical parent or a difficult ex.
You might transfer negative feelings.
Exactly, without even realizing why. Our past literally colors how we see new potential partners.
Wow, so who we've been with shapes who we're drawn to now.
Yeah.
What about breakups and rebound relationships? Are they always bad?
Well, breakups obviously hurt, and people might jump into a rebound for lots of reasons. Distraction, ego boost after rejection, filling a void.
Sure.
The research specifically on rebounds is still limited, but what's there is intriguing. The source mentions studies suggesting rebounds might actually have some unexpected benefits compared to staying single and just stewing.
Like what?
Potentially higher self-esteem, better well-being, maybe even a helpful sense of continuity if there's positive transference happening. It definitely challenges the simple idea that rebounds are automatically unhealthy.
Okay, wow. We have covered so much ground in this deep dive.
We really have. From debunking myths about formulas to how proximity and exposure set the stage, how appearance works and changes, the influence of situations and arousal, building connection through similarity, reciprocity, disclosure, navigating uncertainty.
Yeah, and seeing how the research often pushes back against those simple stereotypes, it shows just how complex attraction is. Dynamic, often counterintuitive.
And messy, like real life, influenced by chance by our history.
Right. The source suggests science can't give you a guaranteed date for tonight.
Definitely not.
But understanding these processes can maybe point the way towards forming, healthier, mutually benefiting relationships.
That seems to be the hope.
So despite all the science, all the factors, it's still wonderfully human, isn't it? Maybe the biggest takeaway isn't some new trick, but that real connection built on warmth, interaction, maybe even embracing flaws, that pratfall effect.
Yeah, that might be more powerful than any simple strategy.
Exactly.
Or, here's a final thought to chew on. Think about that transference effect. How much of that spark you feel for someone isn't just about them. How much is it about how your own unique past, your own experiences and biases are causing you to see them in that particular way, in that moment?
Definitely something for you to think about next time you feel that spark.